Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jody from Autentico USA, and I wanted to talk with you today about painting upholstered furniture. If you've ever had anything reupholstered, you know how expensive it can be. By the time you pay for your fabric and possibly new foam and batting, and then the actual labor of the piece, you can end up spending hundreds to thousands of dollars for just a simple chair or group of chairs. So I have been painting upholstered furniture for years. And if you follow my steps to a T, you will be so in love with your completed piece or pieces. Now, you want to use our vintage chalk paint, not the Versante, but the chalk paint. And the reason why is because the chalk paint is very porous and it will seep into the pores of the fabric. Whereas if you use the Versante line, that has a built-in sealer and it'll dry hard and you won't be able to have a soft finish like you need for the upholstery. So we're going to use the Brunette color on this piece. I picked this piece up at our local Habitat for Humanity. Every year we help them with an event, a fundraiser called the Upscale Resale Challenge. I come in and I paint pieces for them and help them sell them to raise money for the projects, for the housing projects that they're working on. And then I also do demos on furniture, cabinet painting, and upholstered furniture. So the beginning of this video, you'll be in our workshop with us, but then when it gets towards the end of the video, we will actually be at the demo and Amaya, my social media manager, will be filming me so you can see the completed piece. We're going to start today with prepping the piece and getting the first coat on. So when you are going to paint the upholstered pieces, you want to choose pieces that have already a smooth texture to them. If you do choose a piece that has a lot of texture to them or a pattern, just keep in mind you can still paint them, but that texture or that pattern will come through in your final results. Sometimes that lends itself to a great looking effect. So you just have to remember that if you want that pattern to show through for your end result. So this is just a simple linen cotton blend. I don't know if it's showing up on camera, but this chair does have some stains to it. If we were to take and reupholster this, we would have to take a lot of time getting these decorative upholstery nails out, pulling off the fabric, and then putting it back on and then putting nails back in. It would take us several hours, days to get this project done. With the painting, other than drying time, you can have this project done in a couple of hours. So the first step you're going to do is you're going to make a solution of any type of fabric softener that you like. You can use scented or unscented, whatever your personal preference is. And I've got a bowl here of hot water and I'm going, oh, hi, this is hot water, not cool water for Jody. Sorry. Jody wants to help. So I'm going to pour some fabric softener into it. I'm not really measuring. I didn't measure, but it's a couple of capfuls per quart. And I'm just mixing it up with my towel. You can also use a sponge. Okay, so I'm going to take my mixture and I'm going to start going over the fabric. And I'm using a pretty generous amount solution, my fabric softener solution. And so what this is doing is it's cleaning up the fabric. It's pulling out any odors that may have been in the fabric. And it's just getting a good base for the paint. If there's black mold underneath, it is because that chair already had mold on it. This is going to be completely dry. If there was mold to come out from underneath it, it would start smelling. And you can, when you're buying your pieces, no, buddy, you can't drink this water. That was definitely caused from already being molded. You want to check pieces, especially the undersides of your pieces. If there's white mildew stains, if there's water stains on the leg, stay away from those pieces of furniture because more than likely they have water damage on them already. What we're doing to the pieces will not cause it to have black mold. So just wipe down the piece really good with the fabric solution. Now on the back here, you'll see I've got a tape line, and that's because I have to use this for my demo next weekend. So I'm only going to wipe it down as normal. This has to completely dry before we go to our next step. I would say it's probably going to be maybe 5 to 6 hours. You could take a heat gun to it if you wanted to and dry it that way, or you could just let it dry on its own, or you could stick it in the sun. And that's what we're going to do today. Nobody, don't drink the water. We're going to take this outside and let it sit in the sun to speed up the drying time, and then we'll come back to you with the next step. All right, so we are back. The chair has been drying for several hours. We put it outside in the sun, so it dried really fast. And so now the next step in this process, no, sir, you cannot have my brush. The next step in this process is we are going to start painting the fabric. And you're going to give your hand just a shake. And let me pop that open. As I mentioned before, this color is called Brunette. And it's a woodsy brown color, a warm brown. We are going to paint the legs. Also, I'm not sure what color we're going to paint the legs yet. I'll kind of figure that out as I go along. Okay, so you're going to work in small sections, and hopefully you have a wonderful assistant like I do that wants to drink all the water. He's got a water bowl in there that's full, but of course he has to have my water. Okay, so you're going to now re-wet the chair with just plain water. Get down. Jet. Everyone meet Jet if you haven't already. Jet is a 9-month-old Dotsador. He's half Dotson and half Lab. He's a rescued puppy, and he is quite dramatic. So he enjoys camera time. All right, so you're going to wet the fabric, and that once again just plain water. And then while it's wet, you're going to take your brush, you're going to dip it down about 1/3 of the way, and you're going to just stop. You're just going to wiggle it off. Come on. And then you're going to start painting right over, and we're going to paint right over those upholstery nails too. I'll show you in the finished process how we're going to handle those. So you're just going to paint right over the wet fabric. Now, the reason why you wet the fabric prior to painting is so that it will open up the pores of the fabric, those fibers of the fabric, and it will accept the paint. If you were just painting on top of dry fabric, the paint would just sit on top of the fabric. So by wetting it, it opens it up, almost creating a sponge type vacuum, so it'll take that paint into the pores of the fabric. If you get some on the wood parts, don't worry about it because we're going to paint over those. If you already have your legs or wood part the color that you like, then tape them up prior to painting so that you won't get your fabric paint on there. Now, your first coat is not going to look perfect. You can go back over a little bit where you had already painted. If you see that it's really thin in some spots, it won't hurt. It's not like wood when you are painting it, because you're painting on top of the wet fabric. The paint takes longer to dry, so you don't hardly also have any brush strokes. In fact, when it's dry, you don't see any brush strokes at all. So for the legs, I might do a metallic, like maybe a warm gold color or maybe a copper color. I could do a warm creamy vanilla color, something that will complement it's got like a red undertone to the brown as well. I'll take an artist brush on my second coat and get in between those thin spots where my brush is not reaching on the in between the upholstery nails. Okay. And for the seat, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Wet the fabric. And it's not sopping wet either. As you can see, there's no water dripping off of my towel, but it's just enough to wet the surface and get those fibers to open up. I will go back over the upholstery nails. I will hand paint those, or I may just distress them a little bit to get the brown paint off and let the metal come through. I don't know, I'll just kind of play around with it when I get to that point. But at this point, I'm just not concerned about it because I know that I will be able to take care of that in the later processes. Now, if you wanted to paint vinyl or leather, I would not use the vintage chalk paint. I would use the Versante in that case because the vinyl and the leather don't have pores. So you can't use water to clean that up and to open up the pores of the fibers like you would with a regular fabric upholstery. I would just clean the material and then paint the Versante over that, a couple of coats. Maybe later on down the road, I can do another video showing that method. Just have to find the right piece to do it with. We have painted an entire leather sofa before. We actually painted it about 6 years ago. It was a leather sectional, and we used the paint and that had the built-in sealer. And the lady, the customer that we did it for, she still is a regular customer. And to this day, she says that the paint is still holding up. And she has dogs, and the dogs get all over it and climb up on it and everything. And she says it's still holding up great. So that's a good testimony to the product. I don't know if it showed up on camera, but there was quite a big stain right here. The fabric softener water solution took out a little bit of it, but fortunately the paint is just going to go right over that and you won't even be able to tell that there was a stain. So this is actually going to take longer to dry than our fabric softener water solution because it's not only has the wet fabric, it's got the coat of paint on it, which of course is thicker than what we used. So I would say it probably would be best to let this sit overnight. You can still put it in the sun if it's early in the day, let it work. And so we're going to let this dry and we're going to come back for our third step. So we are back. It's actually the next day. The chair's been drying for 24 hours. And when your chair dries, it is going to feel very rough. Because the chair has been wet, as it's drying, it is raising the fibers and it's creating that rough texture. So we're actually going to sand our chair. This is a very important step that you don't want to skip. This will help lend to the overall softness of the final results. You're just going to sand it like you would a piece of furniture. It's going to get a little chalky as you sand it, but don't worry about that. You just keep going. And I'm using a 220 grit sanding sponge. You definitely want to do this by hand and not use a power sander. The power sander will be way too rough for the fabric. And then give it a feel, and that way you can actually find out where you missed. So I've got a little roughness here, so I'll go back over that. And believe it or not, it feels very close to the original fabric, how the original fabric felt. It's very soft and smooth now. So then you're going to take a cloth and just wipe off the sanding dust. And so now it is time for our third coat. I'm just going to give this a shake. And we're just going to paint right over that. You do not re-wet the fabric on your recoating steps. So that's very important. There's no need to re-wet the fabric like you did originally. I'm just going to punch in to where around the nails to make sure that the indentions where the nails are get covered. I still haven't decided what color I'm going to do the legs yet. I will decide that probably after the entire chair gets done, and just to kind of see how the brown dries out completely. And I'm putting it on pretty thick. So the great thing about painting fabric is you don't have to worry about brush strokes melds into the fabric, so that you don't have to worry about the karate chop strokes or overstroking because of the nature of the substrate. So if you notice me going back and forth, unlike wood furniture, I would never do that. If you're working with a lot of pleats or folds, you could use an artist brush to get up inside there, because you definitely want to make sure you get complete coverage with those. This is not that difficult of a chair to do because it's obviously a flat surface, but we have done like channel back chairs and chairs that have a lot of pleats, and we'll just take the appropriate size brush and kind of tuck up in there. Okay, so I feel pretty good about the coverage. Everything's looking nice and smooth. I'll just add a little bit more paint to solve that. Getting in around those upholstery nails by pouncing to get that complete coverage. Okay, so now this is going to take several hours to dry because it's such a thick coat of paint. And when it is dry, we're going to come back and give it a sanding and a final wipe down, and that phase will be complete. So we will be back shortly. So we're back. The chair is completely dry. It is also very rough, very stiff. When you wet fabric, it raises the grain and the fibers of the fabric, so you feel a lot of texture. And how we're going to get rid of that texture is by sanding. So I'm just going to start sanding the chair, and this is a 220 grit, the same grit I've been using the whole time. Now, because this is the chalk paint, it's going to turn it chalky, but we're going to fix that in the process. So I'm just going to start sanding all over. And like I did earlier, I always like to rub my hands over to make sure I didn't miss any spots, and I definitely did. So I'll just touch up where I felt that roughness. Now with just that little bit of sanding, the chair is super smooth. It almost feels like vinyl, like a leathery type feel to it. And that's what we're looking for. Now, if you were doing this on a piece of furniture where wood was your substrate, this would actually, the paint would be coming off. You'd be distressing it. But because the chalk paint has melded with the fabric, the paint's not going anywhere. It is so soft and smooth and pliable now, movable. And now it's time for our final step. I've got a container, I've got a bowl of just lukewarm water, a clean cloth. Now I'm just going to wipe it down. I'm going to wet it. This is removing all that sanding dust that's giving it that chalky look and putting the color back in the fabric, so to speak. So now the chair is complete on this side. Tomorrow we'll be finishing up the chair at the show. We will be filming that and adding that to this video as well. So to answer though a couple of questions that you might have, the number one question that I do get about painting fabric is, oh, well, when I sit on it, won't it crack? No, because of the paint that we use and the method that we use to apply the paint, the surface is not hard. It's very pliable. It doesn't crack. It doesn't make any noise. It's just like regular fabric. Like I said earlier, it has almost a vinyl feel to it. The other question that I get is, do I have to seal it? And the answer is no. If you were to put a wax on it, over time, if someone is sitting in the chair for a long period of time, your body heat would heat up the wax and you end up walking away with wax on your butt. So we definitely don't want that. And then you don't need to put on a hard sealer like a varnish, because that's not a chalk based product, and that will sit on top of the fabric, and that will make it hard and it will make it crack. You don't need to do anything. It's self-sealing because it's absorbed into the fabric. It does not come off. There is nothing on my hand. So it's done. Once the back is done, other than the upholstery nails and the legs, the color that I'm going to use for the nails is a custom color that I mixed. It's half Baroque bronze and half new gold. And I'm just going to take an artist brush. Okay, so I'm going to continue to paint the upholstery nails, just freehanding it. And we will finish this chair project tomorrow at the show. And stay tuned for the final product. And look, as you can see, I'm not being perfect. If you get up on it, you can see where I missed it a little bit. But from back there, look, if any of your friends come to your house and are like, you got a little smudge of paint here, you need to kick that friend out. She's not your friend. She's just hating. We'll go back and do it. Still probably needs one more coat. But I would go back and like stencil something on the back of it, you know, kind of break up the brown. But you can see how I did all the nails and everything. So this, for my cost on this chair to redo this, less than $30. Less than $30. From start to finish, if you were to start it at 8 o'clock in the morning, depending on dry times, I mean, you could have it done by the end of the day. Yeah, you could have it done by the end of the day. It's not going to come off. If it does mar like that, you just take and wet it. You just, yeah, you literally just put it back with water. It will. People say, oh, well, doesn't it crack? No, it does not crack. And then if you, right, it's not going to come off on your clothing or anything. Yeah. The finer the fabric, like the smoother the fabric, the smoother the paint. You could sand even more. The more you sand, the smoother it gets. So you get out of it what you put into it. You know, this was just a quick demo job to kind of show you, you know, what we do. After the paint is dry and in between each coat, you want to sand. And then your final sanding, you wipe it down with plain water. And that gets out all the sanding dust, because it'll give it like a chalky appearance when you do sand it. And the wetting it down will take all that away and bring the original color back to life. Yeah, yeah. No, no, it does not come off at all because of the technique that we use. It's actually blended into the fabric. It's melded with the fabric, and it cures once it's completely dry, so it will not come off on your pants at all. And you don't have to seal it. You don't put wax on it. You don't put varnish on it or anything. It's done. Yeah, it's ready to go.
And you said if that stains, you said you just wipe it down with water.
Water. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And actually, somebody was asking about putting Scotch Guard on it. Was that you?
Somebody else did. I heard you.
It actually kind of acts like a Scotch Guard. Like if you were to pour like something on it, it kind of just, it takes it a while to go in, because we've created a barrier with that paint. Yeah. Yeah.